righty.
Congratulations. We've all made it. It's Thursday, August 5th, 2021, and we have made it. The dry season is over. Football has returned. Yes, it's preseason, but we've got pads, and we've got 11v11 taking place tonight. The Dallas Cowboys and the Steelers kick things off at the Hall of Fame game. We will get into it this morning. Andy Everett joins me once again for Crystal, who will be attending tonight's Hall of Fame game. Andy, how are you this morning?
I am doing well. We see that Team USA rallied to get to the gold medal late last night, and lots of other things we got to get to today as well.
Yeah, Team USA defeats Australia. After being down at halftime, they come back and handle business on the court. Starting now should be the Slovenia versus France game. So by the end of today's show, we should know who Team USA will face in that gold medal round. Other Olympic news updates for you. Team USA also defeated Australia in soccer to win the bronze medal. So nice that they at least left with a medal after such a disappointment in 2016. Dave Ayler holding it down back in San Antonio. How are you this morning, Dave?
It's been a busy morning.
That's what I hear. So we're doing these Eric Clapton ticket giveaways this week. And it's been a lot of fun. People love Eric Clapton. They're excited to go see him. They're excited for the chance to win tickets. But unfortunately, our phone lines apparently are down all across the offices this morning. But don't fret, that just means we will give away double the tickets tomorrow. So we'll have two chances to win. So
that's
be
even
listening
better.
to the show. Yeah, two is better than one is what I hear.
On a Friday.
On a Friday, no less. So keep that in mind, but no phone calls today. But if you do want to join us, if you do want to talk with Andy and Dave and myself, you can head over to the live video stream on both AM 1300 and Ticket 760's Facebook pages, as well as YouTube and Twitch, where you can comment along and chat there. And as always, we are available on your airwaves as a normal radio show or on the iHeartRadio app, where we come in crystal clear and you can catch us anywhere at any time in the world via the podcast or the live show. Now, I mentioned the Dallas Cowboys versus Steelers tonight, so that takes us to our poll question for today, because a lot of people don't care about the preseason. They say it's not real football. Wake me up when things really get started. So we're asking if you care, plain and simple. Do you care about tonight's Hall of Fame game? Yes, football is football, or no, it's the preseason. Right now, 57%, Andy's saying, no, it's just the preseason.
Well, I applaud the NFL, and the Cowboys are in a little bit different boat because they're playing the Hall of Fame game, so they get an extra preseason game. I think the preseason games matter to coaches, and I think they matter to the back end of the roster. The top 44 to 46 players have already been decided who they're going to be unless one of them gets hurt. But everybody's playing for 4 or 5 roster spots, and everybody's playing to get on the practice squad in the event that someone else gets hurt in these preseason games or practices so that they can play. So from that standpoint, I understand the importance of it, because tonight and probably every game except whichever game the Cowboys consider their dress rehearsal, and who knows if Dak Prescott's going to play any preseason games with his shoulder situation before the regular season begins. I don't think he needs to. But should they do a dress rehearsal, you'll see the starters for 2 or 3 series in one game just to get them acclimated to getting hit, and then that's it. There's no reason for Ezekiel Elliott and for CeeDee Lamb and guys like that to go out there and risk injury in these games. And while it's disappointing for the fans who never get to see a regular season game, that's not what those games are for. And that's why they're cutting these down to 3, since they're going to go to 17. And I can't remember the last time that starters ever played in the first preseason game, or hardly that much of any of the preseason games. It's just not worth the risk of an injury to a good player.
Yeah. And for that reason, 16 players on the Dallas Cowboys didn't even travel to Canton. They're not even going to be standing there on the sideline. So no sideline shots of Dak. Also, Amari Cooper and DeMarcus Lawrence, who have been on that injured list, they're expected to be coming back and playing here shortly. But a lot of guys not even making the trip to Canton this go around. So it'll be interesting. I like preseason football because it's where you find the sleeper picks for fantasy football. Because you got to have one, if not two, that you're on the lookout for when your ideal candidates get taken later on down the line. We'll get into the game a little bit more now. Andy, you left us after the 7 o'clock hour yesterday. You had a very special event you were attending. Why don't you enlighten us about that?
Yeah, UTSA dedicated its new Roadrunner Athletic Center for Excellence called the Race Building. This is next level stuff that UTSA has gone to. For those of you that are familiar with the UTSA campus, they're moving the practice fields from where they were near the Convocation Center and the softball complex over to the south where the new building is, south and a little bit west. This building, I can't remember what the square footage was, but it's 2 levels and it's 300 feet one way and 150 feet the other way, and then offices, and the weight room resembles that of many of the Power 5 conference schools. They've been able to get a lot of donations recently to be able to fund some of this. And every student athlete that walks through that campus, regardless of sport, is going to be shocked. I think 13 players yesterday on the football leadership team got to see it for the first time. Some of the early arrivals to the fall sports have seen it. Today, the football team will see it for the first time as a whole as they start to report to camp, and they are going to just be completely blown away. State-of-the-art weight room, training room, medical facilities, nutrition center, everything that a student-athlete needs to be successful, classroom in academic areas. It's amazing. And there are plans in the works now for new facilities for basketball, volleyball, softball, and baseball. And I said years ago, and I think I said this yesterday, athletes years ago wanted to be on TV. And now that everyone's on TV, they want to know what life on campus is going to be like and what access do they have to facilities. And facilities sell your program. And it's I've been around the program for 30 plus years, and I've been really close to it the last 14 as the radio announcer for basketball, and the last 10 years for football. And some of the things I saw yesterday, we dreamed about a few years ago, and now they're reality.
So, Andy, like I said, I attended UTSA for the 2011-2012 academic school year, and football, its inaugural season. So it was the bare minimum, I think, of what they were working with. So seeing the pictures I saw of this new facility, yes, I mean, the locker room is beautiful. I love when teams do the mannequins with their uniforms on them. I think those Adidas uniforms are so clean for the Roadrunners. And even those academic halls and study rooms, they all look fantastic. The weight room is incredible. Since I've been there, have there been other campus updates? Like, do you know if the Chili's is still there?
I think it is. It was. Well, I didn't go last year because I think it was closed because of COVID last year, but it was the year before. Look at where football has gone. When Larry Coker was hired in 2009 and they started practicing that fall, they were using UTEP's practice jerseys that UTEP sent them because they were going to throw them away otherwise, because they didn't have a budget to go buy practice gear and they weren't going to play for 2 years. So they were fundraising. The first helmet and the first football the helmet was basically a mock-up that they bought from a football helmet at Walmart and a football at Walmart. And I believe somewhere around there is the actual football, and it wasn't even a regulation football it was one of the things, you get the plastic ones basically that you get as a kid from when you're 5 years old or whatever. Think to where this program is gone. And obviously Larry Coker started it. Frank Wilson had his stint, and now Jeff Traylor's taken it to, I think, new levels. And he is so excited about this season and hoping everybody can stay healthy, not only on the soft tissue front, but the COVID front as well. There's going to be a lot of really special things for this football team this year, I think.
Now, I don't know if you know much about this, but yesterday that reveal was huge for UTSA, and the UTSA rivals, of course, being the Texas State Bobcats, they announced their hiring of a new AD. Do you know anything about that? Because I saw some
I didn't
scathing
even see
comments.
that. Who did they hire?
Uh,
I,
apparently
I got I got to Google that myself.
Yes. So a huge day for UTSA and that
Well,
UTSA campus.
I will
As
say this about Texas State. UTSA and Texas State have been longtime rivals, and the basketball games over the years have been epic. And the evolution of this was destined. UTSA is the bigger school. For those that don't know, it's the fifth largest enrollment in the state of Texas, and I believe A&M's bigger. Texas is obviously bigger. I'm not sure who's 3 and 4. I want to say UT Arlington's probably up there pretty high, and I don't even know who the other one is. But nonetheless, for years, that 30,000 student number, people still that have been around UTSA a long time or around San Antonio a long time recall UTSA as just this commuter school out on 1604 when nobody drove on 1604. And the entire campus is completely changed. And the construction that's continuously going on out there and has been going on for years has elevated that to where I know that this will upset Bobcat fan, but they're a bigger school and have more opportunities to get into bigger conferences than Texas State does. And so a lot of times along the ways that rivalry gets skewed a little bit, because I think in the long run, UTSA would like for its rivals to be Houston. Right. And UTEP, and who knows what's going to happen with the Big 12. I don't think UTSA is quite ready to make the jump to the Big 12 yet, but in a few years they could potentially be rivals with Texas Tech and Baylor and Oklahoma State and schools like that, depending on where these teams end up conference-wise.
Yes.
And so Texas State's kind of been left behind, and sometimes some of the sports teams. Sometimes UTSA doesn't want to play Texas State because if you lose to them, it doesn't do you any good. And if you win to them, you're supposed to. And then there's a lot of times on the other sports where Texas State's like, man, you guys are too good. We need some wins. We're especially in basketball or early season baseball. Sometimes the coaches will look at the roster and go, not this year. And so that's kind of the thing that's happened to that rivalry a little bit is that the schools have grown apart a little bit because of UTSA's most recent growth and success.
Well, and so it is interesting that that Texas State announces the hiring of Dan Curriell to that head athletic director position. It looks like he's been with the Bobcats for a while, just now moving into that head athletic director position.
And he knows where all the bones are buried. So yeah, he knows where everything is, and I'm sure he'll look back and say, these are the things that Larry Tice did well. These are the things I would have improved. And now he's got a chance to put his stamp on it. So good luck to him, and congrats to him as well.
An interesting rivalry tactic. Now, the big story yesterday, of course, being that unveiling at UTSA in San Antonio, and over in Austin last night. It was a huge night for Austin FC as they not only get a win, which they've been needing for a while now. It's been a hot minute, but they defeat the Houston Dynamo at home. It's the first matchup they've had. They go on to play FC Dallas this weekend, but they're part of now what was originally just Houston and Dallas, called the Texas Derby. Now I'm calling it the Texas Derby Triangle. All right, how big are you into the MLS, if at all? And can I make you an Austin FC fan, Andy?
Doubtful.
Come on. It's the world sport.
Listen, I have tried. Well, I haven't tried hard, but I have at least tried to understand soccer. And the same, I can say the same thing about hockey. I think, I've watched NHL playoff hockey games, and yeah, okay, that's kind of cool, but it's not something that I stopped down to go see. I said this yesterday when we were comparing the U.S. women's national team to the U.S. men's national team. And the women's national team for years has been a candidate to win World Cups and Olympics and all of those things. And the men have not. The men have been a lot further down in the pecking order compared to a lot of other teams around the world. And so I look at the best athletes in the United States choosing to go play some other sport besides soccer when they get to a certain level. I understand it's the world sport. I understand it's huge. Years ago, my first trip to Scotland to play golf, we had 3 caddies that were all probably in the range of 20 to 25 years old. And when they were amongst themselves, they were arguing over who their favorite soccer team was. And apparently the night before there was some match, and it was a big match that everybody in the country was watching. And I'm sure it was the Liverpools and the Chelseas and all that kind of stuff. I don't remember who the teams were. And they kind of looked at me and goes, "Did you watch the match last night?" And I said, "I know you call it football. We call it soccer. Is that what you're talking about?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "I have no idea what you're talking about." So it's never been something I've been able to figure out and enjoy. I will tell you one soccer story that's kind of humorous and unique. Back in in 2001, from 2001 to 2010, the 2010-11 season, I produced and broadcasted an online broadcast for all of Bernie High School and eventually Bernie Champions teams. We did their football, basketball, and baseball games for a number of years. Football and basketball starting in 2001. I picked up baseball in 2005. After the 2001 season, and we had some success with it, one of the soccer dads called me and said, "What would it take to put our playoff games on the internet?" And I said, "You want me to call your soccer games?" He said, "Yeah, you did good with the football and basketball. We really want you to do the soccer games." I said, "I have never seen a soccer game from beginning to end. I have no idea what the rules are. I have no idea what the strategy is." He goes, "We don't care. We just want them on the radio." I said, "Is there anybody out there that you know that can do these games with me that can talk a lot? Because I know nothing." And we're literally like 3 days away from the first game. And so he said, "My son plays for Incarnate Word. He used to play for Bernie. He can do them with you, and he'll do it for free. Just name your price, and we'll go do it." So we worked out a deal, and I did 4 soccer games, and it's the first and only 4 soccer games that I've ever seen from beginning to end.
I mean, how was the experience? Did you learn anything?
What I learned, I have forgotten.
Well, at least you're starting you're fanless right now, so I have the chance to turn you into an Austin FC fan, and I think this
True.
interstate rivalry will maybe spark some interest in you down the line. All right, coming up next, we do have the high five play of the day, inspired by my conversation yesterday with Bill Schoening. We will get into that and more coming up next on the Chris Duel Show.
Hey, Shannon, do you have the rundown? I didn't ever get one to see what our topics are in what times. Did you do one?
Oh, so in the link that you got the StreamYard from, it's just on the bottom.
It's in there? Okay, I'll look at that. Thanks. Oh, there we go. Let's see it.
This is the Strokes.
Oh.
The who?
The Strokes. Exactly.
Never heard of
Come
them.
on, Andy.
They're not on my iPod.
This is a new band.
That's probably why.
They're not that new though, right?
They've been around for a while, but
at ACL.
but newer.
I saw them at ACL in 2011. It was my first night at ACL. It was the first time I've ever been to ACL.
And my friend, that was like who we waited all day for. And when they were 45 minutes late, cut their set early. And when they finally did take the stage, the screaming that occurred. I was like, we waited all day for this?
So that they showed up late and left early. So they play like 15 minutes or something.
It was like 30 minutes. Yeah. Wow. And I was like, I don't get it. Why did we wait all day for this?
I'm sorry if I traumatized you by playing that song.
Well, see, clearly that's one they must have missed because I didn't hear it. But ACL, some interesting. They have followed suit and have dropped the baby from their lineup after his recent kind of outburst. So it'll be interesting to see who they get into to headline there. Maybe it'll be the Strokes. Maybe they'll have them back. Maybe they'll offer them a read.
Play longer than 30 minutes.
10 years ago. Yeah. Show up on time.
Do a full show.
Maybe play your full set. I don't know. Something to think about. Yeah, I mean, I get you're a rock star, but come on, in Austin, we don't live that rock star kind of lifestyle. Everyone be cool. Yeah, those are good shows. Yeah. Like a Paul McCartney, JT, his standard show is no less than 2 hours. When I saw him in Vegas, he had a 3-hour full set. And then when I saw him come to San Antonio, he had cut it down by like 30 minutes. That was just, you can't do 115 shows around the world at 3 hours.
Your voice is going to wear out quick.
That's a lot. But yeah, definitely got my money's worth. Whereas my initial experience at ACL was, why did I pay for this?
When I saw Guns N' Roses at the Alamo Dome, they played 3 hours.
See,
and I realized I don't like Guns N' Roses that much. 3 hours was ZZ Top came out and played an hour, and then Guns N' Roses came out and played 3 hours. And I'd been up, it was on a weeknight, so I'd been up for almost 24 hours by the time I got home.
I mean, that show I saw Justin at in Vegas, because the set was so long, he just had a DJ to hype up the crowd beforehand. There was no opener. Because I think he knew, no one's going to sit here for that. I mean, I would have for JT, but most people probably wouldn't. All right, let's get into it. Today's High Five play of the day, brought to you by High Five, of course, 2 Austin area establishments. Make sure you get out there for a Thirsty Thursday. Lots of specials for you to enjoy. And Andy, today, this was inspired by my conversation with Bill Schoening yesterday, because we were talking about Team USA and the Olympics, and then I was asking him about his favorite moments, and he said his favorite moments are those sportsmanship moments that you see that or you don't always get, right, in the NBA or whatever, because they're guys that see each other all the time, whatever. But in the Olympics, there's these athletes, it's their once in a lifetime shot. They're from all over the world. So we do get a lot of these really heartwarming and touching moments. And one of the ones he talked about was the high jump, in which the gold medal ended up being shared. So I wanted to go down some other great sportsmanship moments that I think deserve high fives from the Olympic Games. And because, Andy, I know you're not as locked in, you're not as big on the Olympics, I wanted to share these with you and maybe warm your heart a little bit. Maybe warm it up towards maybe watching the Olympics and some of these events that you wouldn't necessarily watch. One of them being the women's triathlon. Now, I'm not a runner, so anytime they've done like a turkey trot or anything around town, I am like, no, congratulations. You wake up early and go run in the cold. I will sleep and wake up and eat a donut and congratulate you when you walk back through the door with your little participation medal. But these triathlon athletes at the Olympics, the best of the best, they probably run all the marathons that they can get during the regular year. But unfortunately, not everyone made it. Not everyone finished the triathlon. Some of them bowed out because they just couldn't get it done. But a Belgian runner who did finish, she happened to come in last place of those who finished. She kind of had a meltdown, a mental breakdown, was crying hysterically, couldn't handle it. And then a Norway runner came over. She finished in 24th place. Again, not everyone actually finished. and came over and consoled the hysterical Belgium runner and said, look, you finished. Look at these people who didn't even finish. You should be proud that you finished. That is an accomplishment. You're already at the Olympics, which is an accomplishment within itself. And the fact that you finished is huge. Now, Andy, I don't know that I want to be consoled. The picture of this consoling is awkward because A, there's a picture of it and it's like, okay, camera number one. And then within that picture, you see a giant video camera in front of their face. Not a great time for me, Andy. Not when I want to be looked at. Mm. On purpose. Ugh. Which is not a sacrifice that I'm willing to make for myself, which is one of the many reasons why I am not a runner. All right. Super skinny. Again, so a different breed, as just like the Ironman folks, a different breed over there in Europe. Another great sportsmanship story comes from USA's own Caleb Dressel. For those that don't know, won a ton of medals. He's got a giant tattoo sleeve on his very chiseled body, which is fantastic to look at. And that's not what we're talking about here, but he had a huge and very busy Olympic schedule this go around. And because of that, someone else actually swam in his place in the prelim of the men's relays in swimming. And then he filled back in for the finals. The U.S. men went on to win gold. And so Caleb Dressel actually gave his gold medal to Brooke Curry, the man who swam in the prelims for him. And it was a fantastic shot. Brooks was over in the stands. He went over after the medal ceremony and handed it to him. And some people may say, oh, but like, you're the one who earned it. Like, how could you give away a gold medal? Well, no worries, because of the Olympic rules, Brooke will be able to get his own gold medal because he did help USA advance to that final. I think that's fantastic, because I was worried about that. I was like, what do you do at that point? Because they participated, and no, they didn't participate in the final, but what a kind of crummy situation to be in if you raced in the prelims and then didn't get a medal at the end of it.
And and taken her place on the team, maybe they would have been able to go further. But to me, that's one of the reasons why I wish she would have made that decision earlier. I'm not criticizing the decision as much as the timing of it. But anytime that you can include those others that are on your team that are behind the scenes that don't get the recognition, that's huge.
Yeah, and even though, like we said, Curry will get his own gold medal, the photo and the gesture in and of itself, before he could get his gold medal, to say, here it is, you are part of this. I think that's fantastic. And finally, I want to take you to the world of badminton, Andy, because I know you're a huge fan. Yeah. Did you even know it was an Olympic sport?
I did. And I've actually played badminton. It's probably been about 45 years or so, but I've actually attempted to play it before.
I played tennis growing up, and I thought playing badminton would be just like playing tennis, just a little bit higher net.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't know that I've ever had a volley round ever in my few attempts at badminton. But nonetheless, badminton, the former reigning champion, ends up getting dethroned at these Olympic Games. And instead of, it's fine to shake hands and say good game and call it. There's nothing wrong with that. But he wanted to do a jersey swap with the man who dethroned him. I thought that was fantastic. Maybe a little bit motivation on his side, but also for him to give his jersey to the guy that just beat him. I think in that aspect of, for the young man who ended up winning it all, beating the former reigning champ, to have that to hang on his wall along with a medal. I thought that was pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of. I don't like the term, and I think I mentioned this before. Also, there's the saying that if you show me a good loser, I'll show you a loser. I think you can lose graciously. I don't think you should be happy about it when you lose.
Sure.
But you can certainly recognize that the other guy beat you. And I look at all the times, obviously one of my, if not my favorite athlete of the last 25 years has been Tiger Woods. And he's won 82 times. And every time he's excited about the win, but when he doesn't win, rarely does he not give credit to those who played well and beat him. And that's something that I think any athlete should take. You can't be happy about the fact that you lost, and it should motivate you to go practice and get better. But you can certainly recognize the other person that won the match or won the event.
These are all some fantastic Olympic moments to go along with the great medal ceremonies, and things are winding down here. A quick update for you: France and Slovenia did tip off at 6 this morning. They are currently underway. And let's get a score for you. Oh, it's close. It's halftime now. Slovenia 44, France 42. Again, the winner of this game will head to the gold medal match to take on Team USA, who defeated Australia earlier this morning. Andy, tonight begins the football season officially in my mind, because we have padded football. We have 11v11. We have football on our TVs to watch and enjoy, even if it is the eighth stringers, the guys that we will never need to know their names because they will never make the official roster. I am looking forward to this one. We are asking you on our socials today if you care about the start of the preseason with this Hall of Fame game. 60% now saying, no, it's just the preseason. 40% saying, yes, it's football.
But if you watch
You do care.
on for a few minutes to see a few plays, right, there's something that intrigues you about it. I look at it from this standpoint. Right now, I don't have. I have some meetings this evening, and when I get done with them, I'll come home and I'll turn on the TV and I'll flip to a channel, and if it intrigues me for a few minutes, I'll stay there. I don't appointment view preseason games, but I'm sure at some point I'll lock on it for a little while and see what's going on. And I think most football fans will, just to kind of get their football fixed before it really begins in a month.
With the tragedy that has been the Olympics and its broadcasting, and being able to find certain games or being able to pay for certain things on Peacock if you can't get it on your regular cable, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people just say, you know what, tonight forget the Olympics. Let's go football.
Oh, it's football season. In America, it's football season.
I mean, listen,
yeah.
I will enjoy this game even if it's 90% just shots of Jerry Jones in the stands.
Yes.
I'm all for it. I'm ready for the season to start. My year does not start January 1st. My year starts when kickoff finally occurs. So here it is. We're officially in 2021, folks. I know you didn't. I know you thought we've been there for a while, but
Well,
we're
coming
here
up
now.
we're coming up on 4 weeks until the college season and 4.5 until the NFL season. So
it's a beautiful time.
it's here.
Let it begin. Let it wash over us. Andy Everett, myself, Shannon Salty Tweenie, Dave holding it down in the studio in San Antonio. We'll come back with some more news on Quinn Ewers as he heads to Ohio State. Get Andy's take on all of that, the NIL, and where one Big 12 school looks to be heading. It looks like things will be made official here shortly. It's the Chris Duel Show. Hour number 2 on the Chris Duel Show on a Thursday. And as Chris says, Thursday, it's the beginning of your weekend. And why do we say that? Well, it's because Thursday night football. We're fans. And we think that when you're watching Thursday night football, you should enjoy yourself, whether or not you take in a beer or not, or a couple.
Are you a fan of a 4-day week, longer hours for the first 4 days and skipping Friday?
I am okay with it. I would not push against it. Now for our job, I don't think that.
Yeah, it doesn't. We work every day anyway.
We would not be a part of that.
No, exactly.
But for the typical 9 to 5ers, I'd be okay with it.
So go 8 to 7 and not work on Friday.
Yeah,
I think so.
Absolutely. It's so interesting what COVID has done to like the work life balance and the idea, people are quitting their jobs instead of going back to the office. And, I've been lucky enough to travel in recent summers with my family over to Europe. And, you have to go before August because
football season.
Well, yes, for me. But over there, a lot of things are closed because that's when they vacation. I mean, they have like a natural vacation in the middle of August. That's like weeks long. And then, you also kind of schedule your day to day. I remember being in Barcelona and, you really do go have a nap time because the stores are closed and there's nothing to do in the middle of the day. And so that, it's so interesting to be over there and kind of see how they function. And then over here, it's just the grind. It's just the grind. Competition.
We're grinding.
Competition breeds grinding. And, I'd be okay with a 4-day work week. I don't know that a lot of employers are okay with it, but I'd be cool with it. Because I think it also takes back, I mean, I didn't grow up this way, but a lot of things used to be closed on Sundays, right? Like that was the natural, like, absolutely no working today. And now look at our Sundays. I think we have the same conversation when it comes to Black Friday. I mean, all of a sudden, everyone was opening up like 6 p.m. on Thanksgiving. And I think this year was first time in a long time when stores were like, because of COVID, but also because they were like, this is getting ridiculous and everything's online now anyway.
Well, Christmas started last week anyway, so.
Oh, yeah, there's 2 Spirit Halloween stores already open in Austin. I know one on Burnett and one over here near the studio and what used to be a Toys R Us. And I'm like, it's August. And Halloween, and I'm like, I don't like Halloween to begin with, so I could just skip it. I'd rather like Hobby Lobby is already halfway Christmas holiday. Halloween is just ridiculous, and the only good thing about it is that it's in the middle of football season, and October is great for football season. It's just like the prime time of year. Unless you're a UT fan, they don't always tend to fare well when they have games on Halloween night, and maybe that's where I have my tiff with it. But Andy, I want to get into this with you today. You had this in the notes. You wanted to talk a little Quinn Ewers. Of course, he announced this week that he was going to forego his senior year of high school. He has one English class to compete in order to get his diploma for high school, and he is going to enroll early at Ohio State. He was already planning to enroll in the spring semester, but now he's officially going to head up there early. He's going to get working with the football team and get to know his teammates and get to know the area. Of course, he is a Texas kid out of South Lake High School, so he's heading up there early. And he said it didn't have to do with money, but there were reports that I think it's like a smoothie something or other business was interested in having him endorse them. And that, along with many other deals that could come his way, he could quickly and easily earn $1 million, which I don't think is anything to scoff at. And as well, this company's going to offer him equity as well as a check, which is huge. I mean, to get equity in a company when you're, 17, 18 years? I don't know how old he is yet. That's huge for him and his family, Andy.
I have no issue with any athlete making money on their name, image, and likeness. I think there are some pitfalls and some traps that are going to come along the way that are going to make a lot of people resentful of those who get paid compared to those who do not. They can cross that bridge later. I'll talk about that in a second. But at one point in Quinn Ewers' life, he lived for Friday night to play football.
Mm-hmm.
And when the season ended in December, the 9 months that took place before the next game that he could play in might as well have been 10 years. It seemed every day had to be a drag for him. Oh, my goodness, we're this many days away from football season. I know for myself, and I haven't played football since I was 9 years old. And I know that when the football season ends, the first thing I do is find out when next year's first game is. I have a countdown thing on my clock, and it's 300 and some days till the next game. I can't wait to broadcast the next football game starting in December 20th last year after the bowl game. And I've talked to a lot of coaches over the years, and they talk about the transfer athletes. And one of the reasons why they were dead set against the transfer rule to allow players to leave immediately and be eligible immediately to another team was this carrot that they had out there. Well, if you transfer, you can't play for a year. And most of the people, and I think most of the great athletes will tell you that it's the game that they live for. They don't care about the money. The money is a product of you being successful in the sport that you're in. Yes, Quinn has had a great high school career, and some magazine has decided he's the number one quarterback recruit in the country. And there have been plenty of number one quarterbacks that have busted and have never been able to do anything. And maybe he's one of those guys and he's going to run for the money. But at some point, he's got to regret that on that last Friday in August, when South Lake Carroll suits up, that he's not out there. And to me, this is a completely financial decision, and he's done absolutely nothing whatsoever to build his brand other than have 2 good years of high school football.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of basketball players, football players, baseball players, and I've said this is the one thing that separates the greats from the also-rans. The also-rans enjoy the lifestyle that their sport has given them. Whether they make $500,000 a year or $50 million a year, they enjoy the lifestyle that their sport has given them. The great players go play the game, and their agent tells them how much money they made, and it's usually so much they can't count it anyway, and so they're just playing for their legacy. You look at Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy and Phil Mickelson. They've all been on record as saying, I have more money than I'll ever spend. I'm not playing for money. I'm playing for my legacy. I'm playing for my how people are going to remember me 20, 30, 50 years from now. We're teaching kids that they can get paid before they ever do anything or accomplish anything.
Yep.
And the great players, the greatest of all time, Tom Brady doesn't care about how much the Buccaneers are paying him. He's got way more money than he'll ever need, but he would have never had that money if he hadn't been the greatest quarterback of all time. And that's a product of his hard work and his success. And we're giving Quinn Ewers a whole bunch of money, and he's never accomplished anything. And here's the one thing that I think is going to happen. It may not happen to him. What if Ohio State recruits another quarterback between now and then, and come next August, that number 2 quarterback who didn't get paid, who didn't get come early, is the better player? Mm-hmm. And the coaching staffs are going, Quinn's a good guy, but this other guy's better. He's going to make us win better. Now you've got boosters to go deal with that are going to be upset that you're not paying the guy that you paid or that they paid over a guy that they never heard next August in his new Porsche or his new Land Rover. All of his seniors and juniors are going to be very resentful of him. He may get a couple of lookout blocks in the first couple of practices. When they go out to dinner, these seniors and juniors are going to turn to the prima donna guy and go, he's buying because he's got the money and we don't. To me, Quinn Ewers has sold out the sport, which made him great. He sold out the teammates who are expecting to win a state championship this year, and maybe they got another guy that's just as good. But this is a sellout for a few $100,000 that he could easily make back up at some other point in his life once he actually accomplishes something.
That is a fantastic take, sir. And I think you're totally right. I mean, we are getting into some murky waters here. I mean, it was the first announcement, okay, go ahead, go make your money. You know, kids coming out with logos and going ahead and partnering with brands, it's all great. But once we start playing and we do see things happen, a kid gets injured, and what does that mean for, you know, his appearance? Like, what does that mean with his brand deal? Are any of these brand deals performance based in the same ways we see some contracts in professional leagues? Or what are you going to do if that guy ends up having a bad attitude and so the coach doesn't want to play him, not even because he's not good, just because he's got a bad attitude? And then you talk about Quinn Ewers coming in early, not even a freshman, but still early. He's going to have this money. There's guys that are seniors and juniors and have been there, and they may be, you know, linemen that don't have the notoriety that a running back, wide receiver, cornerback, quarterback has, kicker, whatever. And so they're not making the money that Quinn Ewers is making. And then you've got this guy feeling like he's the king of everything because of what he has in his pockets. And to me, it almost, and I was thinking of this as you were talking, was, does it make sense for them to, okay, you can benefit off your name, image, and likeness, but to prove it, to prove your worth, to earn it, you got to be a junior or senior and have some reps on you got to have proven that you are playing the game and doing things the right way. Because you're right, Quinn Ewers is making a ton of money and he has done nothing yet.
Well, the NCAA has never had great leadership. And I think the NCAA needs to have a commissioner that reports to the conferences so that the conferences are in check and that they're all under some umbrella. Like Adam Silver has had his runarounds with owners, and the owners have hired him, but he has to keep the owners in check and make sure that they play by the same rules to make it fair for the players. And again, I don't have a problem with Quinn Ewers making money.
No.
What I have a problem with is that this is a sport that he's probably played since he was 6 or 7 years old. And game night, there's only 10 of them in high school, unless you make the playoffs. For South Lake Carroll, there's usually 15 or 16. But you only get 15 days a year to go play your game. And now you're going to give all that up for what, $200,000 or $500,000 or maybe $1 million by this time next year? When if you are any good at what you do, you're going to make 10 times that amount over your career. And you're going to give up your senior year of high school and your senior year of high school football and all the accolades that could put you in the record books and the relationships that you've had with your friends. I mean, if I'm his center and his running back, I'm sitting there going, man, I've been blocking and running for this guy for 2 years. And now he's going to go take the money. We got a chance to win another state championship. Now we don't, because he's going to leave for the money. And it should never be about the money. If you're an athlete and it's about the money, you're in the wrong sport. And the greatest players of all time, the money is a product of their success. They didn't get paid first and then become successful. No one's ever done that. And I'll take it from this standpoint. If somebody offered me $1 million right now and said, you can never play golf again, I would tell them no, because that's what I do. That's 90% of my non-working life is playing golf. Now, and I don't know if somebody might say, well, what if they offer you 10 million or 100 million or $1 billion? Probably no, because what am I going to do with the money if I can't do what I like to do with it? So that to me is what I don't understand. I don't understand where his parents here are on this. Maybe they're just saying, maybe we're not as good as we think we are. Let's take the money now so we can't get it down the road.
Yeah, taking a run.
But I just don't understand how if you really love your sport, and that's the players. If I'm forming a team, I want players that are in love with the game that they're playing, whether it's basketball, football, baseball, golf, whatever. I want people that are passionate about the game. And to me, Quinn Ewers is more passionate about what he's going to make and his brand than he is about playing on Friday nights.
And again, I think it's the dangers of what we've gotten ourselves into here. It's great that they're able to make this money. That's not what we're against here, but I think your point on Quinn Ewers is very similar to what we see already college players who are getting ready for the draft who decide this bowl game isn't worth it.
To me, that's a little bit different because if it was the national championship game, very seldom do they not play in it.
But the lower bowls,
yeah.
Guys that think they have a shot at the NFL, they don't want to risk that injury. They don't want to whatever. And for Quinn, I can see I don't want to get hurt in high school and then ruin my chances of being the starter at Ohio State. But he is doing it for a nice chunk of change.
Yeah,
I won't lie. I would take the money and run. That's just me. I don't have any. And I would then start playing golf with that money that
here's what mom and dad can do. With his potential, Lloyd's of London will sell him an insurance policy at 17 years old that says at some point I would probably make $1 million if I have an injury that prevents me from ever playing football again. Lloyd's of London will pay me $1 million. That policy will probably cost the family $15,000 to $18,000, and that's a well-worthy investment than selling out your child or selling out yourself to go to another city that you've never been to before, except on a recruiting visit, and taking classes early. I don't have a problem with him going there in the spring and playing spring football. I have a problem with him not wanting to play those 15 games for South Lake Carroll, because to me, and I know some UTSA basketball players in the past that when they had to miss games because of injury, it killed them. And you could have given them $100 million right there on the spot, and it wouldn't have eased the pain of them not being able to play. They missed the game. And so that to me, I want players when they're hurt or when they're redshirted because of a medical injury, I want them to miss the game. And to me, Quinn's not missing any games. He doesn't care about Friday night lights anymore, which is what he's always cared about since he was probably 4. And now he doesn't care about that. And there's plenty of money to be made out there on his name, image, and likeness a year from now. And a $15,000 premium on a Lloyd's of London insurance policy would secure that.
Talk about these parents being involved in this, and rightfully so, right? They're their kids, and if they're good parents, they're involved in their lives. And we're in the midst of the Olympics, and we had this conversation yesterday about these kids, like they get put into these sports and that's all they know. And sometimes it's the only sport they ever play. And that's what they're raised to do. They're raised to be an athlete. And the mindset is that one day you will be able to afford to take care of your family for generations to come. Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting now to see how this affects, because it's just, we know this, how small the percentage is of NFL players who play for more than 3 years.
Correct.
And compared to all the kids that get started in football and play middle school, whatever. But now how many kids are now going to say, well, I don't want to be a lineman, I want to be a quarterback? I mean, I think at one point everybody wanted to be the quarterback, but now you're looking at it as far as dollar signs as early as middle school. Because, hey, I could be a quarterback and leave high school early. I could be a quarterback and make all this money when I'm in college. I don't have to worry about the NFL. Look at all this money that I could make just in college.
But we're teaching kids that you don't have to be successful in order
Correct.
to get paid for what you and they're the Smoothie King or whatever is going to endorse him in Ohio, in Columbus, is betting that this guy's going to be a star and that he's going to stay 2 or 3 years and go to the pros, and Ohio State's going to win a national championship. And it's well worth it. Maybe they get a few customers in the door to watch him sign autographs, but he's never taken a snap for Ohio State. His success has been at the high school level against kids that weigh 200 pounds on the defensive line and 110 in the defensive secondary and run slower than I do. And so now how are they going to how do I know he's going to couple of games and then pay him for signing endorsements on Sunday afternoon?
That's why I've never been big into recruiting and giving a crap about how many stars you have, because you have so many guys that have all the stars in the world and they come in and they're a bust, whether it be because they can't get their academics right, whether it's because they've just got an attitude issue that they're just not gelling, it's not working with the organization, or whether they're just not that great at football, because that next level is just that. It is a next level and they just don't have it in them. The same thing happens when, we talk about NFL draft bust, or guys that like a Tom Brady who get, they're further down in the draft and look at where they are now. And that too, I mean, all of this is just so interesting because there are websites that make a living off of giving kids these stars and doing write-ups and following them around through these high school. And what is that then in turn going to do to these companies that are willing to invest hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars into these kids before they've done anything?
If you have two quarterbacks that you're recruiting, and one is the number one recruit in the nation, and one's the number one recruit in Washington State, and the number one recruit in the nation is the one that gets all the endorsement money when they show up on campus, and the number one guy from Washington State, it doesn't get a dime. And then practice happens, and the guy from Washington State is clearly the better player. And the players play for him harder. He knows the playbook better. He knows how to audible better. He knows how to read defenses better. And on game day, they choose the guy from Washington State. And as soon as the game's over, win, lose, or draw, all the boosters that gave the number one guy hundreds of thousands of dollars are going to be in the coach's office, want to know why their guy's not playing. And if it's Nick Saban or if it's Lincoln Riley, he'll kick the boosters out and tell them, hey, I'll play whoever I want. But if it's some young coach that's trying to make his way into life, he's going to play the guy that gets getting paid over the guy that's the better player, and that's going to destroy the team.
And that's why I would not be surprised if after this gets going, we start seeing deals for kids where it's incentive based. You get paid either for games you play, or if you're a quarterback, you got to have this percentage of passing, like whatever it is. And that could be interesting too, because I don't know if that then crosses a line into, them making their name off of name, image, likeness versus what they're doing for the team with the jersey they have on. It's so messy. It's going to get messier. I am happy for these kids. I don't want that to come across like I'm not happy for these kids who are making money, who work very hard, and I'm sure we'll do some of these brands well, but it is just a crazy time we are in.
Well, what happens when an athlete busts and he's gotten paid for something he didn't earn, and then he has to go get a real job and goes, well, you going to pay me before I start working? Well, no, you get paid based on performance. That's the way the world works.
So life lessons will be had here with all of these new rules put into place. That's for sure. All right, coming up, we've got sports history, sports birthdays, and a salty shakedown. Stick with us. It's the Chris Duel Show. I know this one. I know it. Give me a second. It's a song I've heard of. Is this Beastie Boys?
Yep. Oh, what's the song?
Hold on. I don't know. I can't. And I can't know it fast enough. What is it?
Sabotage.
Sabotage. My grandmother was a huge fan of Brass Monkey. That was her jam.
Your grandmother was a big fan of the Beastie Boys?
Well, my uncle was. I think he used to work at a magazine, like a music magazine out in LA, and I think he actually may have known one of them, and so he was a huge fan. And
I say your grandma's pretty hip if she's like in the.
She only knew them because of my uncle, but that was one of her faves. So that's the main Beastie Boys song I know, but I haven't heard that one before. It sounds familiar. All right, it's that time of day, 7:30. So we're gonna get into it now. It's time for sports history.
All right, here we go. 1936, Jesse Owens wins his third gold medal in track and field at the Olympic Games. He would win a total of 4 at the Games. The duress that Jesse Owens was under and the entire U.S. team during that time in Berlin was amazing. If you've never heard about the 36 Olympics and obviously Adolf Hitler was in charge in Germany at the time, and he refused to even go down and congratulate the winners. It's a fascinating story and a terrible time in Olympic history, but congrats to Jesse Owens for his accomplishments on this date in 1930. Mark McGwire became the 16th player in MLB history to reach the 500 home run milestone. He's since admitted to using steroids throughout the 90s. And also, you're a Mark McGwire fan?
Well, he was like a kind of a celebrity almost. Like he had appearances on some kid TV shows. And I think it was the Mark McGwire bat that you could buy at toy stores that was like blown up, had a ton of air in it, and they were kind of see-through so you could see the air. And after the admittance of steroids, I mean, it all made sense. But man, I hit a lot of homers off of wiffle balls with that bat as a kid.
Yep. And McGwire and Sosa will go down in the 1998 season as having again after the 1994 cancellation of the World Series. Also in 2013, Alex Rodriguez received a 211-game suspension for his connection to the Biogenesis Lab. When he finished serving his suspension after the 2014 season, it was announced he would not be needed to play third base anymore. He became the Yankees' full-time designated hitter. Those are now. Let's get to today's birthdays. 1962, Patrick Ewing, who scored over 20,000 career points and named to 11 All-Star teams during his 16-year career. He's now the head coach of the Georgetown Hoyas as well. And Patrick Ewing, one of the greats of all times in college and in NBA basketball history, born on this day in 1962. So he is 59 years old. Patrick Reed was born on this day right in San Antonio in 2000. He's the 2018 Masters champion. Patrick Reed turns 31 today on this date, August 5th. There's your birthdays.
Are you big into Patrick Reed? Like, what are your thoughts on that guy?
If I were playing with Patrick Reed, also the teammate I want for Ryder Cups and President's Cups, because he's afraid of nothing or no one. He's game time when it comes, and he's got the nickname Captain America because he was thrilled to play for Team USA in the Olympics, and he can't wait to play in the Ryder Cup. And he's a guy I always want in the war.
Personable,
yes, likable. I would really, and I'm sure there's a good or a bad reason. The thing that I really have an issue with, and it's none of my business and I shouldn't care, but the fact that Patrick Reed won the Masters in 2018 and his
Yeah.
mom and dad afterwards. I cannot imagine how much you hate your parents or whatever issue you have with your parents that can't be reconciled. Because to me, to be able to win something or to accomplish something and not to be able to share it is a very hollow and empty feeling.
Yeah,
and that's my only issue with Patrick Reed.
His personal life that has been brought out into the public, and I don't know if the parents thing is due to his wife and all of that. I think his caddy is his brother-in-law, or at one point was his brother-in-law, and that she may have even caddied for him at one point. And
well, apparently when Patrick Reed was 21, he told his mom and dad, "I'm quitting school, going to the PGA Tour, and I'm marrying this girl." And they did not approve of any of the three things that he did. And so he just cut him off. He goes, "Okay, if that's the way you feel, we're done." And
I'll show you when I'm a big PGA star.
It's not, they don't need his money. They don't need to, but he has not had any real meaningful contact with his mother or dad. And his dad went to, I think, a tournament, maybe at Pinehurst or somewhere along the way, and kind of just snuck in and watched his son from afar and made sure he was hiding behind other fans. And told Patrick, "Hey, your dad's here." And he goes, "Where?" And he told a PGA Tour official, and they tracked him down and kicked him out of the golf tournament. I just don't understand that. I wish he would explain it, but he doesn't have to, because it's his business. I get that. But you are a public figure and a public athlete. And I would really like to, I think the feel-good story would be that there's some reconciliation. But apparently his mom and dad didn't approve of the lady he was going to marry. That's where it may have started.
It reminds me, Carly Lloyd, who of course is one of the great players of our generation of soccer, multiple time, player of the year, huge contributor to the U.S. Women's National Team. She actually scored 2 goals this morning in that bronze medal victory. Probably best known for the hat trick in the 2015 World Cup, and also those goals that saved the U.S. and won them that gold medal in London. But she too, interestingly, I guess probably around her college career, it's all in her book. It's one of the few books I've read. She talks about how she hasn't spoken to her parents in years, and she's got this full life, and she's on TV all the time. And I'm just like, how strange is that whatever it is so big that there's been no reconciliation. And
go ahead.
Just through COVID and everything that went on, they ended up getting back together. And now you go to her Instagram and she's got pictures with her siblings and her parents. And when the U.S. Women's National Team came to Austin, they celebrated Carly's 300th cap, and her entire family was able to be there. And that was, they were on the field with her, with Lloyd on their jerseys and on their back. And it was a moment for sure, just knowing how great of an athlete she is and what she's done for this team and this country, but also just like she's, what her game this morning may have been her last game in a national team uniform. And to think that they didn't get to go to the Olympics and they missed out on all of those other events just because she didn't want them there. And now they had to miss out on these Olympics because of COVID is heartbreaking.
One of the things that's documented by guys like John Feinstein and other people that have covered the Tiger Woods era very closely with people, I had a theory. And the theory is that when Earl died in 2006, Tiger not only lost his best friend, he lost his only friend. And when he won a tournament, things were hollow and empty because there was no one to share it with. Even though he was married to someone who loved him dearly and he was starting a family, he still couldn't share his successes with the people that mattered the most. Reed or Aaron Rodgers. To me, not being able to share that with your mom and dad is a really, really sad tragedy. Yep. And I don't understand why they don't try to do everything to reconcile that so that those successes can be shared.
Aaron Rodgers is another great example of that. And, let's stick with football now, Andy. Let's stick with football as we start today's Salty Shakedown. All right, it's Canton week. It's Hall of Fame week. We kick things off tonight with the Hall of Fame game with the Cowboys and the Steelers, and it was announced Tom Brady will actually be in attendance. He's going to be there to support his friend and former rival Peyton Manning, who is being inducted, as well as Tom's current head coach, Bruce Arians, who, of course, was Peyton's quarterbacks coach for his first 3 seasons, most notably that first season when Peyton led the league in interceptions thrown. Of course, all that seems to matter so little given what Peyton was able to do in his career. But Andy, I do like Tom Brady. He does one thing and I'm like, oh, you bother me. And then he does another and I think, oh, that's so sweet. Like he's a good person. And him going to Canton for Peyton, they're obviously good friends. I love Peyton's Places episode where they're playing golf in, I believe it's like Jim Nance's backyard, and he and Tom Brady are just hitting golf balls. I love the friendship. I love that they're being supportive. You know, it's interesting. They're only a year apart in age, Peyton being older, and they're only 2 draft classes apart. And here we have Tom Brady just won a Super Bowl and about to head into yet another season of NFL football, and Peyton now going into the Hall of Fame. I mean, can you think of any other athletes who had rivals and they became the best of friends and, you know, they show up and they support each other at every turn?
I think Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer were in that category. They're ambassadors of the game and enjoy each other's company more as they got older. I think that happens a lot in individual sports because you're kind of an independent contractor. You're doing your own thing and you don't want any distractions or people comparing you. I think there are baseball players, especially when they're lifelong teammates and then they get traded late in their careers, they tend to root for the other guy when it doesn't affect their team. But those are.
I really enjoy, especially after, you know, watching The Last Dance and like just the rivalries that Michael Jordan has are still some of the rivalries he has today. And then
I agree with him on Isaiah
Barkley
Thomas.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that guy.
Isaiah Thomas is the most hated NBA player of all time. Not
that they worked to make him seem like a likable person in that documentary, but they certainly didn't help his case at all. All right,
no.
Oh, really? Cakewalk?
Belief of him, what he called him is accurate.
All right. I believe you. All right. Micah Parsons, this was news about a little bit a couple weeks ago, but he bought his mom a house with his first NFL game check. And there was a cute video of him showing her the house and her running around and just can't believe that it's all his. He posted to his Instagram some more photos of that day yesterday and also shared, you know, saying, one goal after another is being achieved. He gets drafted to the Cowboys. He says he moved around a lot growing up, so he always had it as a goal to buy him and his mom a home that they could live in and call home and feel comfortable. Andy, I love this. We see so often guys get that first big check and they blow it. I don't know how much the house is. I don't know where it is, but everyone needs a home. It looks beautiful. So I'm wondering, Andy, you say if you were offered $10 million or $1 million, you would not give up playing golf. But say you were given $1 million for actually working, what do you then go spend it on?
Yes.
A golf trip of your dreams?
Golf trips, yes. No, I would. If I had the means to help others, I would. I think that is something that people who come into money, earned or unearned, should try to do. So I would be a generous lottery. Say that I would take care of myself and my family, but others would benefit as well.
Anything close to the lottery, like anything off a scratcher or anything? I think the most I've won is 12.
I won $50
once.
But
that's good. I won like 12. I was like, yeah, I'm cashing this in right now. Buy me some
but
more.
I play the lottery. I play the lottery about 4 times a year, so my chances are even less than they would be if I did it every drawing.
I wait for the odds to go up, and then I'll buy a ticket. And I'm like, just like everyone else, I'm buying all the tickets. That's how it works, isn't it?
Well, buy a ticket when it's.
Yeah, that's right. That's my thoughts exactly. All right. Dan Campbell, head coach of the Lions. I think he's become our favorite guy for sound bites because ever since he's taken over the helm for Detroit, every time he steps to the mic, it's something. Whether he's talking about taking out of their players' kneecaps, or if they've run out of 2 kneecaps, he somehow finds a third one and takes that one out too. He took to the podium again yesterday, and now we know that he's a coffee guy, Andy.
That's not bad. Coffee's okay. I'm not saying I am a coffee guy, but I drink it occasionally.
Well, let me give you Dan Campbell's coffee order. Or better yet, let's have Dan Campbell tell you himself.
There you go.
Two giant cups of coffee, and for those that aren't Starbucks regulars or Starbucks whatevers, Pike I believe is the medium roast, if I'm not mistaken. And so he gets that with 2 shots of espresso. Andy, I got to put all the cream and all the sugars into my coffee to where it's not, most people probably wouldn't even consider it coffee anymore, but it is what gets me going in the morning. So this morning, I don't have coffee this morning, and I'm surprised I'm still with you here to tell you about it, to be quite honest. But is this guy, what is he on? Is he insane? Is he for real? Do you see them having success with this guy?
I think if he's caffeinated, yes. If he's decaffeinated that day, probably not.
You don't want to be around him that day.
Yeah, somebody's going to be going to Starbucks and buying him a cup of coffee. You know, I'm 57 years old, so I've seen a lot of different generations. But I can remember when the price of coffee went from like 19 cents to 49 cents. And the people in my family that would go to restaurants to buy were like billions off of selling $5 venti coffees is just crazy. But the world is a different world than it was 50 years ago. That's for sure. And I know my ancestors are probably rolling in their graves thinking somebody just plopped down $7 and then gave a tip for a couple of coffees.
You talk about the price gouging. I had a huge headache yesterday, so I went to McDonald's because their sodas are immaculate. The bubbles, they just relieve
Super
anything
caffeinated.
I've got going on in my head. And I'm getting a Dr. Pepper because that's what you do. And I remember in high school, if we had time in between, the teacher let us out early, whatever, I had time in between classes, I would jump in my car and go to McDonald's and get a large soda because they were advertising any soda size for $1. I roll up yesterday and they have a picture of a soda and it says a small, only $1. Are my sodas not $1 anymore at any size? Why are we upcharging now? Why are you making me pay more?
Well,
I can afford that.
There
I want
are
a
some
$1 large soda.
There are some places that will charge you $1 for the large, but $2 for the medium or the small. And the only explanation I can come up with that is they just want to addict you faster, so you'll buy more of it.
I just don't get it, sir. I don't get it. But I was disappointed. All right, there concludes today's Salty Shakedown. We've got the 8:00 hour coming up next. We'll get into some more interesting college football talk, realignment, where a possible Big 12 school might be headed, and how NIL rules and partnerships could affect recruits later on down the road. It's the Chris Duel Show. Hour number 3 of the Chris Duel Show on a Thursday. Shannon Salty, Sweeney, Andy Everett, Dave Oler, together with you again. Olympic update. France has defeated Slovenia in the basketball semifinal at the Olympics. So it'll now be a rematch for gold between Team USA and France. Of course, France getting the better of Team USA to start these games. Andy, right off the top, you feel good? Feel okay?
Yep.
Feel like they got it now?
I think I got it. Kevin Durant's going to will them to a win here.
I think he will. He willed the USA team to beat Australia today after they ended the first half down by 3 points. They came back to win that one pretty handedly. That will be an interesting rematch. I hope the robot who
shoot swishes, also makes an appearance for that game. Also today, the kickoff of the NFL season with the Pro Football Hall of Fame game between the Cowboys and the Steelers. We are asking you if you even care about the Hall of Fame game, because it is a preseason game, and I know not everyone's super interested in preseason, but football is football. However, 61% are currently voting no, it's just the preseason, with 38% being excited that football is back, and it's back until February. For those that are betting people, and for those that would for some reason bet on a preseason game where you don't know, your best players aren't playing, but people will be playing.
Yeah.
And you don't know how long certain folks will be playing, or if they're just throwing in whoever and wherever and trying out positions, this, that, and the other. It is currently the Steelers who are favored by 1.5 over the Cowboys. I'm fine with that. Cowboys typically are horrible at preseason. And I was hearing it on FSR this morning when I was driving in that it's typically the defensive coaches, the defensive minded head coaches who fare better in preseason because the defense wants to win and they want to play hard, and a lot of those guys are vying for spots on the teams, and so they're giving it their all. Whereas offense, they just want to get them loose. They don't really care about putting points on the board.
Might be a redneck. If you're betting on preseason games, you might be a degenerate gambler.
Just maybe. And what pride do you take away in winning? I mean, that has to be all about money at that point, right? Because there's no pride in saying, yeah, I called that one. Cowboys by 3.
It's one thing to bet on. I don't know how you bet on sports anyway, because in baseball, one night the one team wins 9-0. The next time they lose 1-0 or whatever, and they change the pitcher for every game, and it's pretty much every inning sometimes. And I don't get it. I betting on sports, I get football, especially because it's something to have action on a game. Fantasy football and gambling has made the NFL what it is, and it's trickled into college football as well. But betting on baseball and basketball, I think is, I remember years ago when I did the Spurs studio stuff, I would sit there and it was when the Lakers were good and the Magic were not. And the Lakers would be up by 35 going into the fourth quarter. And I'm like, well, they covered. And then the line would be like 11. And then they'd put in all the reserves in the fourth quarter and the final outcome would be 10. And so whoever covered, now they didn't cover. And I'm like, how do you bet on sports when you know that that's a possibility every game? And you players in the game, and all of a sudden you didn't cover. So that's just a crapshoot for me.
Did you see the movie Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler?
No, I did not.
He's a degenerate gambler, and he does it a lot, and he's got himself in a ton of debt. So he does this crazy bet and parlay, and like Kevin Garnett is in the movie, and the bet, the whole thing starts with the tip of the game, of a Celtics game. Who gets the tip? I'm like, oh my God. I can't watch racing because I get stressed from that. I can't imagine having loads of money on the line.
Racing, like car racing or horse racing?
Swimming.
Okay.
Right. Car racing, car racing takes too long. I get thrown out of it. But like this, like Olympics right now, like just running, I find I have to like watch through my fingers because I get my heart races. I don't even like in video game racing. I don't like video game racing. That makes my heart race too. Because I also just don't like losing, and I want to win, and I'm not a great driver when it comes to video game racing. So I just tend to stay away, and I don't bet on them either because I don't need that heart rate to escalate anymore. Andy, we talked earlier about Quinn Ewers and his decision to go ahead and move on to the next level and go to Ohio State, and how even though he said it wasn't about the money, I think we can all agree it was about the money, and that's okay, but don't say it's not about the money when it is about the money. And then how NIL and these new rules are kind of really changing the game, and there's going to be a lot of things to be discovered and a lot of probably animosity between teammates. between $1 million guys and $1,000 guys and guys that just aren't getting any checks at all. And it leads me to realignment, because Texas and Oklahoma, they've been in these talks with the SEC for the last 6 months, and they are heading to the SEC at some point. At this point, it'll be 2025. And they did say, it does have to do with this name, image, and likeness, that the SEC is a bigger brand. More guys will want to go there, and it'll give them an opportunity to make more money than probably being in the Big 12 and playing some of the Big 12 teams that we play year in and year out. And I thought that was great, getting ahead of the curve there for both teams. Obviously, the rest of the Big 12 were shocked and were, not very happy about it, because I think a lot of people assumed the Big 12 might come to become dust and go away. And we are hearing that it may soon be official that Kansas will announce that they will make a move to the Big 10. And for Kansas, obviously they're not a football powerhouse. They are a laughingstock. But when it comes to basketball, they are a huge blue blood program. They're always in the conversation for a national championship, always in the conversation for a conference championship. And that's a great conference for them basketball-wise. I'm not sure about the other sports, but basketball-wise, Ohio State, Michigan State, great basketball programs and great competition. Big 12 has great basketball competition, but I think in the larger scheme of things, folks can agree Big 10 is where it's at when compared between the two.
I'm not surprised that Kansas is going to look to the Big Ten. They're a very good academic school as well, so they fit into the Big Ten plan there. And they'll join Nebraska. Yeah, their location is perfect. They'll be close to Nebraska and Iowa. I would not be surprised if Iowa State tries to join that Big Ten. And I don't know where Kansas State goes. Kansas State to me is the odd man out here, unless the Pac-10 saves them, or the Pac-12. I think Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and Baylor make it to the Big 12. TCU and Kansas State are the two schools that are going to be without a home, unless the Big 12 is able to, become a lesser conference and be along the lines of an American conference and not a power, not one of what would become the power 4 and same league schedule. And you'd play the 6 teams or 7 games in the West or 7 games in the East, depending on who you are. And you'd play 2 teams from the opposite side of the bracket, and you'd rotate those around every so many years. I think this is still very important because, number one, all of these schools in these they still need to get their 7th home game or their 6th home game in the case of OU and Texas, since the OU Texas game is always in Dallas. But they all need to get that extra home game and that extra game of revenue. So my hope is that they're able to only play 9 games, and they can still play the Conference USA schools. I know UTSA's got a deal coming up with Texas starting next year that they'll play the Longhorns 5 times in 8 years. And UTSA is going to get $8.5 million for it. Difficult for those smaller schools to do. And not only do the big schools need the home revenue, the smaller schools need the payment that they get from that revenue, knowing that those schools are going to sell out those games.
So you talk about where some schools might end up going, but assuming who's left don't go anywhere, what schools in your mind would be good candidates and target schools that the Big 12 should go after to try and bring in, to try and maintain relevance, to try and stay a part of the Power 5 conferences? Because the only one that immediately jumps out to me is UCF, right? They've had some pretty good years. Obviously, Scott Frost left and went to Nebraska, but they had that year where they went undefeated, right? They even made their own championship banners and rings and everything. And then, you have their argument for not getting into the the college football playoff. And people are like, well, look at your schedule. You're not part of the Power 5. Like they had all these reasons, right? And those reasons weren't good enough for that school. And I think the only way until this expansion happens for the playoff for them to get in would be to join a Big 12. but you need more than that one school.
Well, I think that, I think the Big 12 is on life support. And the reason I say that is because I just can't imagine Kansas not taking the Big 10 opportunity, and at least Oklahoma State going Pac-12 if they're invited to go there. And this goes back to trying to resurrect the Pac-12 or the Big 12 in the past, trying to get Notre Dame in, trying to get Brigham Young in. There's just not that many schools.
ACC.
I think they've got to start looking at ACC somewhere along there to get to build their brand back and stay in a power conference. So if you go from 10 to 7 and Oklahoma State goes, now you're down to 6. The logical schools would be the Houstons, the Tulsas, the Memphises, the UCFs. But there's 2 problems with that. The first problem is those schools really don't have the same athletic budgets as even the small Florida's budget is, but I doubt it's $77 million. And that's what Iowa State's budget is. And Iowa State's the lowest ranked budget in the Big 12. And a lot of people look at UTSA, and I think in a few years, UTSA could be in position for that. But UTSA is nowhere close to that kind of an athletic budget yet. Hopefully through revenue and fundraising, they can get there at some point. And it would be great for them to be able to play in those leagues. But the problem with the Central, and I think UTSA experiences this in Conference USA. The league has schools in Florida. They have schools in Virginia and West Virginia. They have 4 schools in Texas. There's very few built-in rivals. And when UTSA or UTEP or Rice or North Texas plays a Florida Atlantic or a Florida Old Dominion, it's like, really, we don't even have anything in common. Those schools don't really recruit here. You don't recruit there. It's really not that huge of a rival. They're sometimes good games, but there's not that built-in rival. It's hard for people to drive to those games. Where if you look at the condensed part of the Big 12, you've got, if you're Texas right now, you can drive to Baylor, you can drive to Tech, you can drive to TCU, you can even drive to OU or OSU. And if you want to stretch it a little bit, you can drive to Kansas and Kansas State. So you've got regional teams and games that you can from 3 different time zones. It becomes very difficult for your fans to really get accustomed and feel good about the matchups that you have in each of your leagues.
Who I feel bad for in all this is Matt Campbell, a guy whose name the last couple of years has been thrown around to get what would be arguably bigger coaching jobs within the NCAA, even some thoughts of him going to the NFL, and he has stuck through with Iowa State. He said he's committed. He wouldn't have, joined the program had he not thought that he would be there for a while. And as good as that program has become, and as steady as they've become, I feel bad for them and him, given this recent news, because again, they're a school that I think, okay, what do you do? What do you do? Are you about to lose all that relevance that you just acquired these last couple of years because this conference is most likely going to break up?
Well, and again, if you are invited into the Big 10, now you're already competing with Iowa in your own state for fundraising. And a bigger academic pedigree to be able to maintain that Big 10 status. Now your boosters have to cough up more money to be able to compete. Because if you're the low end of the totem pole in terms of fundraising in your league, chances are you're going to have a hard time winning. And so you take a Texas budget that's 175 to 200 million, and now you take a Iowa State that's at 72 or 75, whatever million their budget is, and now you throw them into the Big 10. They're competing with Nebraska next door, Iowa State next door, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Indiana, Illinois. All of those schools have bigger budgets than you do. And now you're trying to compete at that level. And while you like the impression that you have by being in that bigger conference, you may not ever be able to win in that league until you can fundraise enough to attract the better athlete.
I feel bad for them, and so they're projected in Dave Campbell's magazine as well as some others to be the number 2 team, which would put them in the Big 12 championship game at the end of the year. And I think they're going to need to perform at that level to, raise the awareness of the kind of program they are, and to help that school find a soft landing spot and one that will help them grow into the future of athletics. Back to Kansas. The likelihood that they're going to the Big Ten is becoming stronger each and every day. I think it's great for the basketball program. Obviously, that's their bread and butter there for that athletic department. But it had me thinking about NIL, right? I mean, we talk about Texas and OU going to the SEC and football being a huge part of that, and how kids will want to go there for recruiting and to get those brand deals. And I think the same thing will be true for Kansas, because kids right now who go to Kansas, there's kind of that, little shimmer on the Big 12 that it's not the greatest. It's a good conference for basketball, but compared to a Big 10, a Big 10 championship might mean more in basketball than a Big 12 one, right? So them getting into that conference is great. I also think of the Adidas scandal, right? Because there were kids that were playing AAU ball and they had deals with Adidas, or they had deals with these other shoe brands, and those shoe brands were pushing them to go to these schools that were Adidas or whatever brand was their choice. And that could in turn affect recruiting, and it has, and there's documentaries about it and all the craziness behind there. But now that kids can get paid, I start to think, what if they get to be paid by these shoe brands? What if these shoe brands are saying, look, I know you've been offered by all of these schools. We're willing to give you a deal when you get to college and play in our shoes, but you have to go to a school. You can't go to a Texas where they're Nike. You can't go to Oklahoma where they're Jordan. You got to go to a Kansas where they're Adidas. Is that just another piece of it?
Well, we haven't seen all of the results of the Adidas scandal to begin with. It's gone on for 3 or 4 years worth of investigations. There's still the speculation about Bill Self at Kansas and Rick Pitino at Louisville and recruiting players through Adidas's slush funds or whatever you want to call it. And now the NCAA is basically saying you can do whatever you want. So how are you retroactively punishing people from 2010 to 2015 for stuff that should have been legal then and is now legal? If the guy from Adidas can go to the basketball player at DeMatha High School, Maryland, go to Kansas, go here, and you get paid. Go to a Jordan school or a Nike school, and you're going to have to negotiate with them. And I think that is definitely going to be put back in play. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be really interesting to see that all of the things that coaches are I think some of them have gotten prison sentences. I think Chuck Person's either going to go to prison or has been put on probation from that. Because towards players' families to get them to go to Auburn. And now you're going to basically go directly to the athlete and say, here's $100,000 if you sign with Auburn. And they're not even going to need the coaches to get in the middle of all that. So it's a slippery slope that we're on, and there's going to be a lot of crashing and burning on it. But definitely there's going to be athletes that are influenced to go to a school based on a certain company providing them funds.
And that the shoes is just like one of the more major brands that come to mind. But you think of a game day atmosphere and all of the banners and flyers and announcements and logos of local companies, national companies that are supporters of these schools and these brands, and what that effect could have on those schools if they say, listen, Texas, you have Tiff's Treats, so we don't want any of your players partnering with Crumble Cookies. If they start partnering with Crumble Cookies, we're going to start taking away money. We're going to stop providing your media members with a giant plate of cookies at halftime. Now, that would personally affect me, and I would take great offense to that. So I need that kind of thing to be sorted out sooner rather than later. So I personally do not get put in the position where I can't have warm cookies in the press box at halftime. but that's just me. Maybe I'm taking this a little bit too personally, but I'm not making the millions. Okay, all I get is those free cookies. That's what I live for
Well,
at game days.
The biggest problem with the name, image, and likeness thing is it's not equitable. No matter whether you're the third string quarterback or the first string quarterback, or you never see the field, if you're on scholarship, you have the exact same scholarship as every other athlete on your football or basketball or baseball team. You get the same room, books, board, and tuition. At some schools, that's worth $80,000 a year. At other schools, it's worth $200,000 or $300,000, $400,000 before you graduate. And then you get that than anything else. The name, image, and likeness deal only benefits the star players. And you can say, yeah, Andy, that's true about the NFL. Tom Brady gets paid more than his center does. That's accurate. But Tom Brady takes care of his center. Tom Brady's a grown adult, and he takes his offensive line out to eat every now and then, and he invites them over to the house. And they're okay with that because he's Tom Brady, and they get to block for him, and they get to protect him. When you're an 18-year-old, 31-year-old pre-med student on your at right guard that's not getting any money, he's going to be very resentful of Mr. Prima Donna behind me back here that's supposed to lead me to a championship. And every time he makes a mistake, he's going to not be very happy about it because that right guard's playing for his education and that quarterback's playing for his education plus however much money he can get.
Great conversation, Andy. We will keep it going. We'll wrap things up here during the next segment. It's a national day today, and I'm not happy about it. I'll tell you which one coming up next on the Chris Duel Show. I've heard this song. Can't name it. Can't tell you who it's by.
Andy, you
No
know
clue.
it. You have no clue? Steve Miller Band.
Don't know this one. I may know it when the words start, but I don't
Dead or
know the
alive?
tune.
Alive.
What's the name of the song?
Jet Airliner.
Are we getting to the lyrics here? Because I think I
About
think I know
20
that.
seconds.
Oh, that's way too long. Okay. Well, let's talk about what day it is today, because I've got some tips. We love a good national day on this show, and there's some good ones, and then there's not so good ones. And I think today falls in the not so good one category, because today is National Oyster Day. The snail of the sea. Why do we have a day for that? Why are we celebrating that? First of all, who's eating those? Do either of you like oysters?
No.
Yes.
I've had them, but
okay.
I don't like them.
So Andy, I've tried food. I will try food.
Yes.
I've
oysters.
tried some strange things, and I can say I tried them. I didn't care for them. Whatever. I know some of them are like delicacies. Like, I'm sorry, it's not for me.
I've had snails too, by the way.
I've done the escargot thing. Never again. When you eat oysters, are you putting the
Yes.
sauce
A
on
lot of stuff on them.
them? So are you really eating an oyster, or are you eating a slimy sauce?
With a cracker and horseradish.
Right. So if you were getting like the thing of oysters, and they brought you nothing else, just the oysters.
No, I want the cracker, the horseradish, and the cocktail sauce.
So why are we paying a whole brick for some oysters, and all we really want is the sauce and the cracker?
I will tell you a quick oyster story. Back when I was in college, there was a restaurant in Norman that flew in fresh oysters every Monday, and on Tuesday they had, or Tuesday morning, they had all you can eat oysters, 25 cents each. My best friend, his brother, and his dad all went to eat. His brother and him ordered a meal. Me and his dad topped off 9 dozen oysters.
Oh,
9 dozen.
Yeah.
God.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now you
This wasn't some kind of like food eating contest.
No, they just kept bringing them to us, so we kept eating them. And
wait.
the bill said, I don't even know how, I think I had 50. I don't know.
So let me do a quick math on that of how much 9 dozen oysters.
Well, I think my friend and his brother may have had a dozen between them, and the other 8 dozen, which would be 96, were shared by. His dad probably had a few more than me, but yeah, we ordered 9 dozen.
They were 25 cents a pop, then there's 27 bucks for 9 dozen. Which is
Yeah.
pretty good, because how expensive are oysters now?
Oh, they're like you get,
A couple bucks, right?
yeah, it's like $12 for. I think they're like $1 each, basically. Sometimes a little bit more.
It's $27 for 4 people. That's a pretty good meal.
Yeah, well, that was 1985 too. So
Well, that's still not bad.
You said you were flown in, because like where else would you get
yeah,
oysters?
because I don't think they're growing oysters in Oklahoma. There's no ocean nearby.
Oh my gosh! Well, at least one of us has a more adventurous palate here, Andy. I wonder what else you eat that I don't eat. Probably a lot. I don't eat.
There's a lot of things I don't eat, especially if it's green.
What's something popular that other people like that you are like, no, thank you?
I refuse to eat peas.
Peas?
Peas. I could be on a deserted island surrounded by sharks, and I will start swimming for food before I eat peas.
That's interesting. I didn't know. Peas are fine. I don't want them in anything. My aunt insists that mac and cheese with peas or mixed with peas is a thing. And I'm like, I've never had this. She's like, sure you do. I'm like, no. I would have spit. I would have eaten around the peas. I would have not. You can give me a sausage link and then a side of macaroni and cheese and a side of peas, but do not cross that line. Okay, the only food, and I will die on this hill. The only food that should be touching is Mexican food. Your beans, your rice, whatever. Because at the end of the day, your enchiladas, your burritos, your tacos, it's all that same stuff. It's just where on your plate do you want your rice and beans? Do you want it in the tortilla? Do you want it next to the tortilla? The only thing I won't allow to touch on a Mexican plate is a crispy taco because I need it to remain crispy, and so I get that on my next plate. But I will die on that hill.
I will mix, and I learned this. A lot of people did this when I was a kid, and I thought it was gross, but I learned to like it better over the years. It's like hash browns with over medium eggs mixed together. That's good.
Okay.
You should try that if you like eggs that are a little bit runny, or like eggs at all for that matter. I know some don't, I don't. There's a lot of foods that I'm pretty particular. I don't like Chinese food. I don't like Thai. I don't like Vietnamese. I don't like Indian food. So those are off the list.
I'll admit, going out to eat with me can be a bit of a chore. I am the one who I place my order and the waiter thinks I'm done. I'm like, no. I know I want the chicken fried steak, but let me tell you how this is going to go.
They're spitting in your food.
I know. I need the sauce on the side, and if you could just don't overbread it for one, and also the green beans, potatoes, those are delicious. Separate. Don't not make them touch because that becomes I can eat that part. I can't do it. We have to do separate plates. If we got to do a bigger plate, I'm all for it. But like, I am that person, and I'm especially that person at restaurants that I repeat at.
I know there's some people
that will eat, like if they get hamburgers and fries, they will eat their fries first and then eat their hamburger.
Yes, I will not mix. Fries are not appetizer. Don't let anybody tell you.
And here's the other thing. I like ketchup on burgers, but you have to dip the ketchup. You can't put the ketchup on patty. And it does taste differently. Trust me.
You're getting full face ketchup if you just like put it on and then take a bite.
You don't spread it on.
Burger, you don't spread it on.
We talk about our food preferences for hours, but let's maybe move a little bit away from that. I will tell you tonight on the dinner plan, I am going to have pizza with pepperoni and fresh bagel and a Mexican Coke while I'm taking in the Cowboys and Steelers game. That game is tonight at 7 on Fox. The first official game of the preseason. Thank you so much. I love that drop. I am excited. I'm looking forward to it. It is football. Whether or not I make it through the full game, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see just how bad it gets, right, with who they put in. And I mean, if the announcers start going off on all these tangents and analogies and talking about other things, basically anything but the game, we'll see what happens.
What they like to eat.
Yeah. Right. But it is an exciting time. What they're serving at the press box that night. Because you think about this game was supposed to happen last year, and it didn't. And this weekend, they're inducting 2 classes into the Hall of Fame. They're having these 2 iconic teams, even though they're without their iconic players, playing each other to kick things off this year. I think it's going to be huge. It's going to be a moment because, again, we did not get to experience last year. Chris will be there. He's supposed to join us tomorrow at 8 a.m. to discuss the game, talk about his experience, what he's done again so far, what he hasn't done. I think he may have gone to the museum yesterday, which is that place is on my bucket list. I think that just looks like so much fun. I love museums. But how excited are you, Andy? Will you be watching
Will you just be keeping up with it on social? What are your plans for this evening?
I'll glance at it occasionally. I won't see the kickoff most likely, and I probably won't see the end.
See the kickoff most likely, and I probably won't see the end.
Now,
but I'll see.
Do you watch Hard Knocks during?
Sometimes. Again, that's another. I'll watch it. When I watch TV, I kind of watch 10 things at once, and that's one of the reasons why I'm still a cable person. I haven't cut the cord, is because if you're watching on apps, you have to wait for them to buffer up. Whereas if you're watching on cable, you can switch quickly and not miss anything. As long as you're in charge of the remote, you know exactly when to flip. So yeah, that'll be kind of going back and forth as well.
I agree with you. I still have cable. I've every day considered getting rid of it. But as someone who watches sports for a living, I feel like I have to have it. You have to be able, especially during football season, you have to be able to flip back and forth with each channel. I mentioned Hard Knocks because, of course, Cowboys are on Hard Knocks. They've already begun filming. The first episode is going to air on Tuesday of next week, August 10th. And I may get sidetracked and just start looking for cameras on the field because, as we know, preseasons are huge for bubble guys. The guys that probably are already on the roster. There's already set of guys that they're shooting, whether it's their contract, whether it's their play, whatever. They are going to be on the roster no matter what. There are guys who are working for those last and few spots, and they have to shine during preseason. A lot of them do during special teams. It's really where a lot of them make their mark. But I love on Hard Knocks when they follow these kind of bubble players and get to know their stories. It'll be interesting to see ahead of time maybe who they have their eye on, and kind of dig into them, because it's always heartbreaking at the end of these season of Hard Knocks. That one guy you're like, oh, he's got such a good personality, and look, he's a mama's boy, and oh, he's so nice. And they're like, yeah, this you're not going to get a kid.
And they've got the camera in the coach's office when they call him in and say, bring your playbook.
Yeah. And some of them don't know what's happening.
Most of them know.
Should be smart enough to get it. But
bring your playbook means you're not sticking around.
They're like, oh, are we getting new plays? And they're like, you might. If you can find another team, pack your bag. Here's your trash bag full of the shirts you got while you were here. You can remember us by that. I'm sure you'll wear those again. Put those in your closet. Or use them to burn them later. I don't know how upset some of those players get. But really excited for the game. Really excited for Hard Knocks. Something to look forward to. Again, Team USA defeats Australia early this morning, and during the show today, France went on to beat Slovenia. They only won by 1 point, so that would have not been a easy one for USA either. Should have Slovenia made it to that gold medal game, but that is something to look forward to. Again, I'm hoping the great shooting robot who shoots free throws, threes, and half-court shots with ease makes another appearance. And I hope that they broadcast this game live and on a channel that everyone can find. Let's just make it NBC. Let's just all agree right now. The game should be on NBC. We all want to see it. We all want to witness it, because we're all going to talk high praise for this team when they win, and we will talk the most smack you ever heard if they come away with silver in this Olympics. I don't know about you, but it's gold or bust.
Japan's 14 hours ahead of us, so even if it's 7 o'clock at night, you're still watching it at 5 o'clock in the morning here.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the games have been on the weekend at 7 a.m. Central Time. So that, but again, they've also been on random channels. So let's just 7 a.m. NBC. Let's all get on the same page. Team USA gold medal game against France, the revenge match. Now, in your mind, if they beat France, does the first loss go away? Did you forget about that?
And the two exhibition losses. The ultimate thing is you.
Preseason.
Yeah, it's a preseason game. You're just warming up. Now, I look at this Olympic team, and there's 5 or 6 players on it that are not dream teamers, if you will. Mm-hmm. And we've had the dream teams ever since 1992, and for most of those years, you've had the best of the best. But especially this year with the condensed NBA schedule and the next one about to start in 6 weeks, there's not a lot of players that want to play. And I think this is part of the things going forward. Are you going to be able to find players that actually want to be on these teams?
I would say that as the country who owns the NBA, we should be able to find players and good enough players to go win gold. Each year, the Summer Olympics occur, but we shall see.
USA versus France. All right, everyone, enjoy tonight's game. Cowboys versus Steelers. Again, that's at 7 o'clock on Fox. Andy, Dave, and myself will be back with you again tomorrow in 21 hours where we will recap that game and so much more in the world of sports. Thanks so much for listening. Have a fantastic day. See you in 21 hours. Adios.
Adios.